still have their names on your tongue. You acknowledge them, you let them know that they still matter. And that is what Coco Nyamili, Nyamili, Coco Nyamili, Nyamili, Coco Nyamili, Nyamili, Coco Nyamili, Nyamili, Ibole, Ibole, Ibobono, Ndamami, Ibole, Ibole, Ibobono, Ndamami, Ebulanyelu, 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 Anamabara na ihe dị njọ ma na-emezi konyo seke Anamabara no n'ihe dị njọ ma na-emezi konye seke Igbo bụ n'ndike ụmụ Igbo bụ n'ndike ụmụ Igbo bụ n'ndike ụmụ Igbo bụ n'ndike Coco Nyamini, Nyamini, Coco Nyamini.
Good day, Ndewo, good morning. I am so happy to be here today. I hope you're looking at, I'm looking pretty good on camera today. Okay, Dibias, Dr. Wanyo Hosimini is not going to be with us today. She has a minor health challenge, but nothing major, so we'll keep her in our prayers. Ndewonu. Ndewo is an Igbo word that means long life to you all. We're so happy and glad that you are joining us today. And we're going to talk about something that is pretty interesting that we've always talked about the show. The original scheduled show for today, the topic is going to be discussed next Sunday. So if you're disappointed, please bear with us. We plan on making it up to you and feeding you a whole lot of spiritual information that will help you out in your time of spiritual need. Otinedile diri Chineke, Chukwu obiọma Chidiebere. May every way of our lives be light. May our acts be crowned with good. And may the world prosper through our ministry and our messages now and forever. Ofo Yagazie Ise. Today, we're going to talk about an interesting video. And this video pretty much summarizes all the discussions that we've had over the years, not just from our show, not just with our ministry, but also what great African leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, so on and so forth, have always talked about. The idea that prerequisite to greatness is recognition of one's spiritual culture and history. So we're going to play a little video right now and listen to it, hear what the person that made the video has to say. And I'm sure while we're listening to it, it's going to ring, a few bells in our heads. And we're just going to be glad, to be able to watch this video today, and then we will talk about it. So with that being said, let's cue it up and see what this interesting video is all about.
Yoruba, Zulu, Taswana, Ndebele, and every other African language. But as a scientific book translated into a single African language, that is a conspiracy, that is a trap, and that is a scam. Someone who can be scammed with the same trick over and over again for decades upon decades is considered a fool, and their gullibility and lack of critical thinking make them willing participants in their needs. I have walked into different libraries and I have seen university science books translated into Chinese, Russian, Portuguese, French, German, Spanish, and so forth. I have seen Think Grow by Heal translated into French. I have seen the Japanese version of A Man's Search for Meaning. I have seen a Spanish version of The Alchemist. All these books, I have seen them in various languages, but not find the church in Africa, waking preacher would not have a native translation. This is where the scam comes in. You also will never find a school in Africa where the English-speaking teacher will be having a native translator next to them translating chemistry, physics, mathematics, geography, economics, etc. to the students. I have seen many science books translated into various languages, but none in any African language. It's mathematics in Chinese. The Japanese are taught engineering in Japanese. They all learn astrophysics, medicine, accounting, biology, management, government, and so on in their languages. The only book that Africans have had, and the only time Africans have some language, is in a church. In facts, think seriously about this. The black is only member of the human race who has been brainwashed to think that beheaded him with prevented him from attaining aspired goals and life desires. Almost every misfortune he encounters on earth is the fault of some others who must be blessed with the fire of the Holy Ghost in Jesus' name. The white don't have terrible ancestors who have terrible things. No, it's only the black ancestors. Over the years, the ancestors have been so vilified by Christ. They tithes, stay up all night, fast and pray. Ancestor in the name of Jesus. The black ancestor is wicked. Having caused his ancestors who gave him life, the black man is roaming around the world like a tortoise. He has no backbone, zero identity. Thus, no race respects him. He is lynched in Malaysia, incarcerated in camp. He is shot like a dog in the street of America. In Europe, he cleans the white man and they spit on him. Why won't they? A man who hates himself and despises his roots deserves no respect for whatsoever. John Hawkins was a foremost English slave trader, a thief, and by contemporary moral standards, he can as well be called a terrorist. John Hawkins made 3 trips to West Africa in the 1560s and stole Africans, whom he sold to the Spanish in America. On returning to England after the first trip, that Queen Elizabeth was directly participating in his next venture, and she provided for that purpose a ship named Jesus. Hawkins left with Jesus to steal some more Africans, and he returned to England with that made him a knight. Arms, the representation of African in 2 generations of Hawkins and Queen Elizabeth I are alive and alive the proceeds of their evil ancestors. They don't demonize their ancestors despite the greatest evil humanity has ever witnessed. Both individuals sanctioned rape, kidnapping murder, but their children don't bear ancestral causes like black Africans. Pressed to see a member of the British airline denounce slavery. If that is wrong, please point. Is it time to emancipate yourself from mental slavery, oh ye Negro? If ancestral cause exists, who should suffer more than pillage and stole and enslaved his fellow? Surely the man who, because they were too weak, deserves his future generation. They had to. Do this black African church today, binding and casting ancestral curses, know that almost all the top British politicians from the 17th century to 19th century were proud slave merchants? It is on record that 15 Lord Mayors of London, 25 sheriffs, and 38 aldermen of the City of London were shareholders in the Royal African Company between 1660 and 1690. The RAC alone was responsible for trafficking over 1.5 million Negroes to Britain, and twice David and Alexander Barclays were active participants in the kidnapping and enslavement of millions of black Africans. As was standard practice at that time, the risky and long-term nature of transatlantic slave trading required that offer credits to prospective slave traders for periods of between 1.5 to 3 years. A bank that provided this service run by Alexander Barclay. Their bank still carries their name, the Barclays Bank. Is also a proud sponsor of the English Premier League that me and you are fanatical fans of. Don't cast their ancestral evil Rather, he was humanized and tortured and enslaved that keeps praying against ancestral causes. The Bank of England was also enslaved. Sir Richard Naves, director of bank for 48 years, was also the chairman of the Society of West Indian Merchants, a group of vile men who stole Africans and made handsome profits by selling them on to farmers who needed them to work on their sugar and tobacco plantations in the West Indies. Today, Liverpool Football Club will be playing Tottenham Hotspur in the Barclays Premier League. Pay attention. How many of who are Liverpool supporters today know that the initial founders of that football club were retired slave traders, whom in 1892, with slavery, decided to invest their money in football club that will reap future rewards for their generation to come via a bank called Otto Haywood and Sons and Co. The bank was Martin's Bank and then Barclays Bank. You watch them and shout in ecstasy because your ancestors committed the risk to experience ill luck, and you will believe as nation. Liverpool was the major port for the transatlantic slave trade in Liverpool. Near 1.5 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic in Liverpool ships. The Liverpool Merchant was the first recorded slave ship to sail from Liverpool. She set sail on 3rd October 1699 and arrived in Barbados on 18 September 1700 with a cargo of 220 enslaved Africans. Part owner Sir Thomas Johnson is known as the founder of modern Liverpool. Liverpool City wouldn't be what it is today without trade in black Africans. The personal and civic wealth gained from cemented the foundations for the Liverpool's future growth. The children and grandchildren against black man heaven here on earth and live in more stable environment. They are managed to stabilize their society and solve their problem and live in a relative peace. But the Negro ancestors, the wretched of the earth, who was kidnapped and his freedom forcibly taken away from him, he was sentenced to a plantation for the rest of his life. It is these ancestors and many others who are demonized by Christians as having bequeathed their offerings because ancestors are good men and women. This is my article. I hope it is food for thought for many of you who would like to all repeat and say Christianity has brought enlightenment. The white man has brought civilization. Newsflash again, my sisters. Before the white men ever knew what they call binary numbers, my ancestors, example, Orunmila was already writing in zeros and took you. A scam.
Okay, it's frozen. I think we get the gist of the video. Joining me to discuss this video is the beautiful Akachi Azubuike, looking good, looking nice, and of course, always incomparable Dr. Dibias Chidozie Okoro. Welcome to ChiismLive. This is a heavy topic, and it's really the crux of every, how do you say, the foundation for these conversations that we've been having. The idea that Africa needs to really develop from within. The understanding that it is your primordial core, your culture, your religion. That's your best defense against imperialism. All great nations in the world today have one thing in common. And what they have in common is reverence for their ancestors, cultural originality, and understanding the importance of history. We have no understanding about any one of these things in Africa right now because of the kind of educational system that we have in Africa, in our Black communities. Nobody ever stresses the importance of knowing your history, ancestral reverence, knowing where you've been to understand where you are today and where you're going. We don't have any general understanding that what we do today or what we know today, the knowledge that we have today, is really because of those people that came before us. If we have that kind of understanding, if we just have an inclination that what we are today is because somebody came before us, you will find out that we will have a little bit more appreciation of our history, our culture, and our past, good or bad. No ancestors were not perfect people. They made mistakes just like everybody else. The idea that African ancestors were evil and did something that was terrible, so terrible that it was not important for us to what's the word, to recognize them and to include them in our future plans, in the things that we want to do economically, with our educational system, economic system, science, and what have you. We act like we, Black people, our ancestors never contributed anything to civilized behavior in all areas of human endeavor. Whether you're talking about mathematics, I know for a fact, historically speaking, the first mathematical calculation was in Central Africa, called the Lebombo Bones. I even put that in my in the African calendar for ChiismLive Corporation. Then you have the Ishaka bones. That was over 30,000 years ago, when the Europeans were still living in the in a cage in Central Africa, in Sub-Saharan Africa. We were calculating distances, but our educational system does not provide us with this kind of knowledge, with any kind of comparative analysis. We really know nothing of our past. Whatever we knew about our past was probably disengaged from us through the slave trade. First, it started with Islamic slave trade, where over 40 million Africans were sold, before the Europeans even came to Africa in the 17th century. Then, of course, colonization in the 19th century just pretty much devastated us, knowledge-wise, about self. The educational system was changed, right? You put tribes that have nothing in common in terms of language together, and insisted that they become one country, like they did in Nigeria with the Hausa, the Yoruba, and the Igbos. And then you put your English language as the lingua franca, disengaging us from our own languages, right? Nigeria is a country where if you needed to put people of similar languages or traditions together, one of the most important things is to find a common language to allow communication. In our own situation, the common language they found was language that will allow us to communicate with the colonizer, as opposed to language that is primordial to us, that we all can use to communicate. In Nigeria, it's a difficult thing, because then you have English, so you communicate with your with the enslaver. Then you have Igbo, you have Hausa, you have Yoruba. So you will have to make sure that all Nigerians speak all three languages in the educational system, plus English. So as opposed to English being an elective, it's now the primary language that you have to learn, while Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, depending on where you're going to school in Nigeria, becomes an elective, right? It should be the other way around. African language should be what is necessary. Then the elective becomes English. So we're not interested in communicating or speaking a language that the colonizer understands, just so that we can be in the same kind of a communication space with them. If you go to China to do business, you better learn some Chinese. If you go to Japan, doing business in Japan, you better know how to speak Japanese. Great. If I'm doing business in France, I have to know how to speak French. So on and so forth. Nigeria, with the three major languages, it's kind of difficult for you to pick one language, either Igbo, Hausa, or Yoruba, and then make sure that all these three major ethnic groups speak that particular language. Naturally, they're always going to pretty much learn how to speak their own native language, because it's spoken all around them. But the problem we have is the idea that if you decided that it's going to be Igbo, then the Yoruba man says, why can't he be Yoruba? If you decide it's going to be Hausa, the Hausa is going to say, why can't it be Hausa? So you don't really have a consensus in terms of total mental independence from the colonizers. We don't have that. And we don't have the kind of leadership that has made a decision that the African comes first before anybody else. It is important to understand how great civilizations became great, right? And adopt some of those economic, social, cultural ideas that, quite frankly, is not limited to a specific group of people. This is really the way great nations do business. Nations that want to influence, to have influence outside of their own borders. That's how they do business. That's how they build the educational system, science. That's how they grow. Understanding that it has to be done from within first before looking outside. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Hopefully, some people are listening based on the video that we just watched today. Let's start it off. Ladies first. Akachi, what do you think about this video?
Wow. So much. You know, thank you for having me. One of the first things that comes to my mind is this video that I saw on Instagram like 2 weeks ago. And it's a video where it was an Igbo person in the background. I don't know if you can really see it, but they were teaching Igbo to Chinese people in China. And immediately what I thought of is that I feel like some of our people in the comment section, they were excited about this because they were excited that Chinese people were learning Igbo. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
This is about power and domination.
Yes,
they're learning your language. They're learning African languages so that they can come in and conquer you. So that when you speak, they know what you're talking about when they're on our land as merchants and as neo-colonizers. And, you know, my thing was, for the people, you know, who were excited about this, why? And the reason was they thought, well, they're going to bring businesses. and then I was thinking, okay, for the people who understand that this is a problem, beyond, you know, the commentary of this is a problem and this is colonization 2.0, it was like, what are we going to do about it though? And it seemed that many of the attitudes, I mean, it was hundreds of comments, but it seemed that so many of the attitudes and commentary was like, we don't have any agency to stop this or to assert our sovereignty, our liberation, our power as Africans, as Igbo people, Nigerians, Ghanaians, wherever you are, while we have this absolute stealth, and it's not even really stealth at this point, but invasion of Africa. I literally have seen and learned, I couldn't even finish it. I think it was in the Zambia, whole hospitals, towns being developed by Asians. The workers are bringing their families over to do agriculture and bring animal agriculture, which is we don't typically eat pork. We don't really eat pigs, you know, bringing that kind of livestock over to Zambia. And I was just like, yo, we're just gonna let this happen? Like, we're just gonna sit by and we're just gonna act like we don't have a choice or that this is the best thing for us? So that was what was troubling to me. And I've never seen that video till now, so I'm happy that video is out there and it's on TikTok. But it was just so many times when I'm around our people, I feel like we're just accepting, like, you know, this is the best thing for us. You know, we don't like it that much, but it's better that, you know, we have these modern comforts, as if Africans, if our story had not been interrupted, that we wouldn't have evolved to have some of the things that we have. In fact, I think we would have them and they would actually be us sustainable, and not only sustainable, but they would be centered around our culture and our values in a way that social media is damaging people. We wouldn't create something that was harmful to us as far as technology. Not that we were perfect, but our culture had certain aspects that were built into us that we would make something that was good for us generations after us. And so I'm glad we have Chiism Live.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I mean, I totally agree with you. The key to what you were just talking about was the idea of being interrupted, right? Some of the smartest people in Africa were enslaved. You know, the Middle Passage and the doctors, the Dibias, the farmers, the hunters, the warriors. You know, a lot of people left behind were older people and children, and you know, some women, of course. But some of the people that would have helped to accelerate, excuse me, the development of Africa, you know, to join the rest of the world, we were pretty much cut down, you know, and enslaved somewhere. So it is no wonder that we have struggles right now, because not only did they enslave and take people away, but then the second round of this malfeasance was the what do you call it? The colonization of the Africa, where they now targeted indigenous African culture, traditions, and so on and so forth, and wiped it out and supplanted it with something that is totally foreign to you, right? So that's really where we are right now. Everybody wants to go to heaven, the saying goes, but nobody wants to die. Anyway, okay, I mean, Dibia Chidos here. What are your thoughts?
I salute everyone. We pray for the speedy recovery of Dibia as the wine. We're all in spirit praying for her. I didn't know that. I was expecting to see her live kicking today, because yesterday we discussed and she told me she will see on the program today.
Yeah.
So we are
you saw my ugly face. Now you're feeling bad. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Well, the African situation, the African condition, it's what we will never stop talking about. But my happiness is that we are not just talking about it. I'm happy I joined the group that is not just talking about it, but want to start taking steps to addressing the problem. And it starts by not just talking on a program, but having where you teach people, you have to graduate people, and that's where we're talking about the schools where we can teach people. Because for me, gone are the days I blame the colonizers.
Yes.
What they did is what they had to do, and that is what that's how nature is. Because if you study the ecosystem, you discover that God is for the humanization of human animalism. When us the Igbo say let the hawk and the eagle perch, whichever one says the other should not perch, let its wings be broken. It is for sociability, amiability in a society. That is why we build society on respect. And that respect is to make sure that there's respect and it's reciprocal and it's for everyone, including the idiot in the society, including even the environment itself, the animals, the trees. There's respect for it, for them. As Unsala, there's Aro. Then all of these are built on the principles of Ofonogu, making sure that we live on the principle of respect. And then there is an issue of conscience. So all of these is for us to live in harmony in society. And where we fail to protect the concept that we have built, because society is a concept, where we fail to protect it, nature will take its tone. That is his toll, and that's what has happened to us Africans. And I feel it is high time we stopped complaining, we start running around and think about what we can positively do. And this is what is left for people like you and I in the Chiism movement and those others who are also involved. We should look beyond money. We should look beyond our pocket. We should look more towards posterity. What we should, that is to say, looking beyond money does not mean we don't need money, but we need money to mobilize for posterity so that there will be continuity in what we're doing, and beyond continuity, perhaps those who are to come behind after us, we're looking for the likes of Akachi, Dr. Simone. We are looking at you, that you will move what is happening today beyond virtual to physical site where you have actually meet and people meet. You have to train people, and it has to be here in Africa, we hope. These are the practical ways we can turn things around. And for me, I understand what is happening in Nigeria today about Nigeria's election. Look at it as the struggle between evil and good. And we are waiting for which one will triumph. Whichever one triumphs, the other one will not go to sleep. I do know of that. If good should win, the evil will try to fight back, and evil should win, good will try to fight back. How that will happen, I don't know. But if I look at it vis-a-vis where my talk was going, it is not true that all the time nature is governed by reason. Nature is also governed by blind will. Because if you look at the ecosystem, one thing is designed that one thing must feed on another. Vegetation will feed on earth minerals, and the herbivorous animals will feed on vegetation, including those that eat fruits. And those ones that eat, then there are those who are meant to eat the herbivorous, and even the carnivorous eat the carnivorous. But in all of these, there's balance. Balance in the sense that they only hunt for food, they don't hunt for game. And so that is what is dangerous about human beings. We have the concept of tomorrow because we are rational, and that reason, if it is well directed, is a plus. But if it is ill directed, it's a great minus. And should human rationality, should human power of transcendence be used to facilitate the evil side of human beings, then we're going to have the kind of thing we have in our hands. So that once we are able to, we are capable of knowing things, not just instinctively. We have them as notions, ideas, concepts, theories. So we are capable of projecting into 1,000 years or even to eternity. So once we have this sort of thing, then we are going to have the situation we have in our hands, whereby we use all our powers of rationality, of spirituality, of religion, of education, of philosophy, to propagate evil. And so here, God will only work for us if we understand that we are the God here on earth. If we fail to understand that we are the God here on earth, then the power above cannot come down and help us.
Yep.
Because in the jungle, every animal has to help itself.
Yep. The world is a Serengeti.
And that is why the tortoise, yes, it has no back, no backbone, but it is one of the animals that lives the longest in the jungle, in spite of its disabilities, because it has learned a way of living within its own confine. It's not trying to be like the lion. It's not trying to be like the tiger. These ones are fierce, the elephant, but they don't live as long as the tortoise. That's spineless. Because has learned how to live within his own world, master his world, and defend it.
Mm-hmm.
Using all the trickery and all the cunning on earth to do that. That
And
is
it's part of our folklore. Yeah.
So now, so that is what we must learn how to do. But we cannot do it if you don't have a nucleus.
Yeah.
That's the thing against us, because colonization was deliberate. Those who came to colonize were hungry. There are places, if you go to Britain, it's arid, there's nothing there.
Mhm.
You go to most European countries, arid. So they were hungry. The Chinese that you're talking about, they are hungry. They are the fiercest of the Asians. They are hungry. So they are looking for all ways of domination. And I do remember some 20 years ago as a student, I projected amongst my colleagues, I said, we cannot avoid the Chinese colonization, and we cannot avoid the Indian colonization. But the Indians will do it subtly through spirituality and entertainment. The Chinese will do it through trade, and more fiercely so. However, I also said that the Chinese colonization will awaken us from the doldrum. It will awaken us from slumber. How? We are being bastardized and messed up by two religions, Islam and Christianity. So much so that our so-called intelligentsias, some of them as intelligent, as educated, quote and unquote, that we think they are, have the belief that should America collapse, or Israel collapse, or Rome collapses, Jesus Christ will come back and that will be the end of the world. Should anything happen to the Kaaba in Mecca,
That is so true, man.
should anything happen to the Kaaba in Mecca, or should anything happen to Saudi Arabia, it will be the end of the world. Mahdi will come back. What will jolt us out of this is not us, but the Chinese colonization. How? Because they are not coming here with Christianity. They are not coming here with Islam. They are coming here with Confucianism. They are coming here, and their colonization will be worse than that of the Arab and the Europeans combined. How? You just said that they are learning our language, and the reason they are learning it, in fact, they are marrying our women, they are marrying our men. Their women are marrying our men, but their men are not marrying our women. And what they do there in China, when they marry our men, the first thing they do is to learn how to cook our food. And they begin to cook our food immediately there in China. And if you complain that they don't cook like us, they say, hey, then go to hell. So they are going to come here. They are going to compete with the woman that sells akara, that makes my mind. The woman that does street trading, side street trading, hawking. They are going to compete with that woman. They are going to outsell that woman. They are going to compete our shrines with us, our spirituality with us. And they are going to do this in the very raw way. That is what suffering was jolt us out of our doldrum.
That's deep.
Slum.
That's very
and
deep.
Once that happens, we will now go back to the little that is left. We will go back to the little that is left and come up. We will have to, whether we like it or not, we will have to go back to necromancy. Just like the dung beetle. The dung beetle will hibernate in the dung for 28 days. After 28 days, one dung beetle went into hibernation. Several dung beetles come out renewed. That way, if we don't go back to necromancy, we will not be able to either reincarnate or resurrect, whichever way you want to put it. It is not possible for any plant to begin, or any living organism to begin its life from the middle or the top. It must always go back to necromancy. If you sow a seed to the ground, it must encounter darkness. It must decay. And it is when it decays that it begins to bring out a shoot that will begin to search for light. So the law of development is that you must go back to necromancy. You must encounter confusion, then define your path. And so if we do not want to do it willingly, we will be inadvertently will be taught in the most brutal way. And so to round off, I'm saying this so that I don't want to encourage Africans that tomorrow will be good. There is nothing, like I told my wife the other day, God does nothing if you do nothing. Onyekwe, chiekwe.
It's just the way it is.
If you affirm, your chi will affirm.
Yeah.
If you don't affirm, you don't strive, your chi will remain dormant.
Yeah. You know.
And so the whole thing left is zeros on what I call transcendence. We must learn the act of transcendence. We are not the only ones that have faced this in the world. Just yesterday, I was with one of the autopilot members here, and I was quoting, what is wrong with them? Why are you people with this Israel thing? He said, no. He said, nah, brother, prof, there's a reason we do that. He said, why do you do that? He said, of course, that all of them, they know Ndichi. They know their home, that there's nobody that is in IPOP that is not touching back home. But why that they have told the power of Israel is that we can learn something. So he said, those are the only people in the world that were like us. In their own case, they have left their home. They had no place on earth. They had to reconvene. And they did that in the most brutal way.
Of course, it's always the story.
They did that. So for them, these are the people to emulate, because we are disarray. And so the only people you can emulate are those who are in disarray, who are even in worse condition than us. They had no place. They were scattered all over the world. Yes, we are scattered all over the world, but we still have a place. So how do we take possession of that? And so, I said, you have to look into what some of the things you do. You did the enlightenment. It's okay. They are not against enlightenment. They need people like us. They will listen to us, but they will not. What they will not listen to is that they know that at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, we have to be prepared for what is coming, and it can come anyway. So
absolutely.
So dike mbrede keji amadike, na mbrede na dike, mana mbrede keji amadike. So
absolutely.
It is the unexpected that you use to know who is a brave person, and the brave is not just a muscular person. It is by the brave. The Igbo mean humanity, human being in totality, wise, agile, power to focus and focus correctly.
Yeah.
Patience. All the virtues, the DK has it, so that you can accurately predict when, not how to strike, but when to do so.
Yeah.
So we can go on and talk about that, but we do need to understand the power of transcendence and to understand this, we understand what does it mean when our forefathers talk about Chukwu Okike Abiama, something that was not in existence that could bring itself into existence and bring things that were not in existence into existence. Yeah. Meaning that if you really want to move forward, you must learn how to move out of your comfort zone and do the extraordinary.
Absolutely.
If you are thinking, our problem today is that we are thinking of trade, like the people who are teaching the Chinese, Igbo. What they are thinking is money, trade.
That's pretty much
That's our greatest.
Yeah. We'll do a deeper dive into what you're saying, because you're absolutely on point. As a matter of fact, one of the things you just talked about, Dibias Chidos here, is Ebe Beru Uge Beru Kesi Bela Unku Guaya, which a cultural interpret that to mean live and let live. Now, if you're going to colonize or enslave the people, live and let live is not your spiritual mantra.
No.
Right? Colonization and slavery has one prerequisite. You have to be willing to be as violent as you possibly can to bring people to do what it is that you want them to do. They understood that when they came to Africa, that way of thinking in Africa needed to be gotten rid of. Live and let live does not fit into their agenda and what they want to do. If they start respecting life, if they start appreciating you as part of God's creation, giving you the dignity that you deserve as a human being, then slavery and colonization would never have been possible. So part of making this slavery and colonization possible is to be as violent as possible, which is not part of African spiritual dictate. So that's one of the reasons why they needed to change the way we think. And if you look in African societies all over the world, we've adopted that way of thinking that the end game is what's important. How you get it, if you could get away with it, right? Nobody cares. I mean, you got Nigerians right now that are chiefs, but what is their trade? They're armed robbers. They're killers, they're thieves. Not just on the underground level, but look at the leadership. I mean, there's hardly any honest leader in Africa. They're all thieves, but they go to church on Sunday. They go and pray to Lord Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and all that. They desecrate our culture. They break the collar, the most sacred part of our spirituality, and they say, through Jesus Christ our Lord. I know Muhammad never ate any cola. Jesus never prayed with the cola. And we ourselves, when we are praying, what do? We ask for their Son of God to carry our prayers to Chineke, which is like one of the craziest fairy tale, way of thinking that I know, where you think that you have no direct relationship with Chineke, so you have to go through a medium to get to God. It's not like you and your family. My dad always uses this example. If you want something from your dad, do you ask your sister or your brother to go tell your dad what you want? Or do you go straight to your dad and say, Dad, I need this, or Dad, please forgive me, or whatever? It's a direct relationship with your father, your mother. If I got a problem on something, or I need something done, do I ask, Dibia, Dr. Owa, can you go tell Dad, or can you go tell Mom that I want whatever? I go and negotiate directly with my parents. This is African spiritual way of thinking, because we bring him down from the high heavens and we actually deal with our relationship with Chineke based on how we deal with ourselves. That's why we say, Madu Buchi Bea, do unto others as you would like Chineke to do unto you. I never say do unto others as you like others to do unto me, because I don't know what others want to do unto me. Others now want to enslave me. So if I do unto them, I'm going to enslave them back. But I always believe that Chineke does me no wrong. Do unto others as you would like Chineke to do unto you. Because in African spiritual way of thinking, Madubuchibe, you're like Chineke to your fellow human being, because most or all God's blessings flow through somebody. You just don't come from the high heavens. It just doesn't happen, that way. Africa is a prize. Like Dr. Chidozie mentioned earlier, Africa is a prize. It's barren up there in the north. What do they have? Some of the minerals that the world needs for its technology come from Africa. Africa, naturally, agriculture is our thing in sub-Saharan Africa. I don't need any irrigation system. I get plenty of rain. Animals to eat, it's everywhere. I can't even count the species of animals in sub-Saharan Africa. In the Serengeti, we have more animal species here than anywhere else in the world. In Africa, the only place that comes close to us is the Amazon jungle and Australia. Because believe me, if anything can kill you in this world, go to Australia, you'll be dead. If you go out there into the wilderness without the right kind of protection and understanding exactly what you're getting up into, if you go to Australia, your chances of surviving in the Australian outback is way less than if you were dumped in the Serengeti in Africa or in the Amazon jungle. Australia is just a crazy place. Anyway, got that out of the way. Akachi, you are young. And like Dr. Chidozie had mentioned, this journey is not really, it's not about money for us. I'm 60, my next birthday, I'm about to turn 63 years old. So it's not about the money. I've done pretty well in my own personal life financially, raised my kids and all that. So I'm not, stressed out over that. But what we do is about getting information to your ilk. You're young. You're the future of Africa. And it is imperative that we do everything in our power. If we get some financial, benefits from it, it's just because he allows us to do more. The institutions that we talk about, it needs funding. It's not coming out of my pocket. Jesus didn't fund Christianity. You know what I'm saying? Islam is not funded by Muhammad today. Buddha didn't fund anything. Buddhism became the official religion of China because the emperor made it an official religion. In philosophy, we call it imperial patronage. That's how this thing spread. A lot of these religions don't spread because somebody came to you and said, hey, I got a nice story about Jesus. You want to come along? No, it didn't happen that way. You put a rope around your neck, stabbed you through the heart, did whatever violence they could put upon you for you to kneel. And it went on for generations and generations and generations until they wiped out any semblance of who you are primordially. And what you are now left is a shell of Africans all over the world, hating themselves, have no appreciation for their history, their ancestors, their contribution to human civilization in all areas of human endeavor. We pretty much have no appreciation for who we are. We appreciate what somebody has told us that we are. We have been redefined, run amok, run astray. Malcolm X. Who taught you to hate? We hate each other. We hate ourselves. We hate our lips. We hate everything about us, our history. But we forget the fact that just because we talk about ancestral reverence doesn't mean that your ancestors were perfect. It just means that along the way, they've created institutions, way of thinking that has allowed the community to successfully carry on and meet the challenges that they face at a particular point in time. We appreciate you, Akachi. What do you think about what we need to do as people of African ancestry to accelerate the educational process so that we have a little bit more understanding of who we are and feel a level of pride, which is essential in this journey to affirmation? What do you think?
So I guess like one of the first things that, at least for me, what I found in some of my own personal relationships, in terms of me embracing our culture and who we are, and this is messed up, but I'm just gonna say it. It was almost for some people, instead of the greatness of who we are as African people, it was like I had to shame the devil. Or even though the devils have no shame, but it was like I had to shame or expose the truth of the dominant culture that we live in, and completely remove that veil so that people could understand that these people are not greater or better than us. In fact, and I say this as a person that was educated in I grew up in the suburbs and was educated in European dominated schools all the way through university. I learned about European history and culture from Europeans. And a lot of the information that I had about Europe and world history in high school, that was already shaping my opinion to sort of counter this narrative that Africans, that Black people were somehow defunct, just naturally, like we were inferior, right? And so I think that one thing that has to happen is we have to share the truth of who we are, but we have to share the truth of world history and the dominant culture of people to demystify this Jesus complex, the blue-eyed, blonde-haired Messiah that's going to come to Africa and save us, and Mary who's going to set up a school and, do all these wonderful things for us. Like, I had to remove that veil. And, this is controversial what I'm going to say, and I'm not demonizing necessarily anybody, but this is my personal view, and it was my understanding of history, but because I was a Christian. And I remember thinking like, wow, it's almost kind of like this Jesus figure that we associate with, that's promoted to us around the world. I said, it's sort of kind of like that might be the actual Antichrist or the devil, because everywhere this figure has gone, it's been mayhem and chaos and genocide and destruction. So you're telling me that this is a savior, but it's kind of looking like everywhere this, we didn't have a concept of hell, but hell came to us when we got that figure. So it was like I had to, for some of my own peer group or relationships with family, it was as if I had to sort of unmask this purity, this overly holy, righteous concept that we have about Eurasian culture, and then African culture is demonized. I had to, do that so that they could first even hear what I had to say about Africa, because it's being compared to this, it's being compared to European culture. And so then when you bring it to reality, what European culture is, and then you start sharing about African culture and what our story is, not that we're a perfect people, we had our faults that led to our fall. But once I was able to share the actual history that I learned from these universities, these institutions dominated and controlled by Europeans, then it was more palatable to understand Africa and Africans and who we are. And it was almost like it gave some people permission to embrace the goodness of who we are, which is, it's unfortunate, but hey, whatever works. I feel like. And so I think that's part of what's happening, is that we are literally worshiping Eurasians.
Yeah.
So I think if we want to expedite, our progress, I think we're going to have to tell the truth. Because I think, when I was learning so many things. I mean, the high school that I graduated from, we having our class reunion this year. It's McGavick High School Raiders. Our mascot was the McGavick Raiders, and it never sat well with me. It's a white man on a horse with a sword. And what is a raider? Like I loved history. It's someone who raids.
Yeah.
That's my high school mascot. And McGavick himself owns a mansion that was built by enslaved Africans, some of which who might have very well been my family. And I'm supposed to be proud of this. I think that like there's so much that we don't know about what happened. And yeah, I think people are afraid. Like I know that parents don't want to teach history because they say, "Oh, I don't want my child to grow up and hate people." It's not about hating anyone. You don't have to hate anyone, but you do need to know what happened, and you need to, break the illusion of this magical, super righteous, purified savior, Mary and Jesus, or Muhammad or whomever, of these foreign people who invaded and enslaved and genocided you. So I think that truth has to be told, and then I think it just makes it a lot more easier. Unfortunately, that's just been my personal experience, but it seems to make it a lot easier for other people to come back home to who we are.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I would say this: everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right? For you to go to heaven, you have to die. That's just it. There's no heaven, biblically speaking, because in the Bible, heaven is not about heaven and hell right here on earth. It's about heaven up there for those that did good and those that are recognized by God as do-gooders, and hell for those that did bad and those that didn't walk according to their Lord, in quotes, according to the dictates of Jesus Christ. I mean, that's just where you are. It is what it is. That's that religion. Every religion, they have their own way of thinking. And, in the end, this is all about controlling human behavior. That's really what this is all about. It's not about anything else. It's about, it doesn't matter what religion you belong to. It doesn't matter. In natural theology, in religious philosophy, it has one goal only. Spiritually speaking, there's a difference, religion and spirituality. But religion has to deal with spirituality because spirituality deals with your conduct. How you live your life is the spirituality. The religion, in its etymology, simply means a recognition of something greater than yourself, and that something is the Almighty Creator. Whether it's Allah, Yahweh, Chineke, whatever you want to call that Creator. When you recognize or you feel, you understand that the life-sustaining forces around you, without any further explanation, you didn't create it. Religion becomes automatically in you. It now becomes a duty that you feel compelled to perform in reverence to something greater than yourself that supplied these life-sustaining forces. And that something is Almighty Chineke. It is what it is. That's just the way it is. Education is really key for us. But unfortunately, we have not been able to sustain the kind of leadership that understands that. Listen, I'm not going to point, call names or anything. Dr. Chidozie mentioned it. You got Nigerian lawyers, you got Nigerian engineers, African lawyers, Jamaican engineers, doctors, well-versed in the sciences and the whole ball of wax. But most of them believe that that God had a mother. Think about that. The creator of the heavens and the earth has a mother. It's like you can't even begin to think about how crazy that sounds. Then they try to confuse themselves by telling you, oh, it's about the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Say what? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. You just called Mary, Holy Mary, Mother of God. Which God you talking about? The Father or the Son? Is Jesus not God? Is it not a Trinity? Can Jesus be God without the Holy Ghost and the Father? Because without the Holy Ghost and the Father, you cannot call Jesus God. Because according to your spirituality or your religion, it is about the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So Jesus now has a mother. This is what you're dealing with. And Nigerian brothers and sisters who are African brothers and sisters who are scientists, this is the way of thinking. It is okay for you to tell me that Jesus rose the dead, fed 5,000 people with a loaf of bread, turned water into wine. Daniel in the lion's den, he survived. Job in the stomach of a whale. You can give me all these magical fantasies for me to think that your religion or your creator or your belief system trumps everything else with this magical, crazy stuff. And yet, if I tell the same story about some creator in some other religion, it now becomes magic. It becomes blasphemous. So it's okay for Jesus to turn wine into water. But it ain't okay for a Chinese to turn wine into water. Which one is magic and which one is God's power? Or are they all fallacies? Why are we picking what's right in religion and what's wrong in religion, and we ascribe everything that is right in religion to the Abrahamic religions? And everything else that is outside of the Abrahamic religion is sinful. Without any appreciation that, number one, in my spiritual dictates, in my African spirituality, in Chiism, diversity is divine. The world is just not full of black people. You got white folks, you got Asians, you got all kinds of human beings. We just don't have the German Shepherd. You got the pit bull, you got all kinds of dogs. They're all dogs. each for whatever reason, some of them we actually genetically produced ourselves and created our own species of God. So that just tells you just how intelligent human beings can be. What about ants? There are all kinds of ants all over the world. What about horses? Different horses. What about cats, lions, tigers, jaguars? They're all cats. What about trees? Different kinds of trees. Diversity is divine. Unfortunately, specifically or particularly, when you talk about diversity, we're just not talking about the physical manifestations. We're also talking about diversity in thought. We're talking about diversity in behavior that is influenced by your environment, that now, through this experience, you develop a system of worship and appreciation of life-sustaining forces, knowing how to put them all in the right mix so that you are not, polluting your environment or doing things that is going to hinder or contribute to your own misfortune in terms of survival. Diversity is divine, man. There's no, even the air you breathe, the oxygen just doesn't come on its own. There are other elements out there mixed up with it that you breathe, including nitrogen, right? All that stuff. You're not pure oxygen. There's no pure oxygen that exists in nature. It exists in the lab. But in nature, pure oxygen doesn't keep you alive, does it? You got to breathe some other stuff in mixture with it that makes you what you are. We, unfortunately, like Dibias Chidozie said, the worst is yet to come for Africans. And the worst is yet to come for Africans because this new colonization is a direct attack up here. You're speaking their language. You teach them your language, makes it easier for them to come and just take over, communicate with you. You have this thing about you. Oh, they're coming to build our airports. They're coming to build hospitals. Why can't you build your airport? Why can't you build your own hospital? Why do you need the Chinese to do it? Why do you need anybody to do it? The reason is because, number one, your mind is messed up. You don't understand what needs to be done so that you could be able to do these things for yourself. We have no idea. It's not taught in our school. You go to medical school, you become a doctor. This is, what do you call it? Job training, professional training. Has nothing to do with being an educated person. Yeah, you went to school, you made A's and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, the same people that made A's, the same engineers and lawyers and chemists and what have you with their A certificates are the same people that are in leadership in African countries, and look at the result of their A grade from the university. What you see right now. We have changed the way we think to the point that it's not really important what you are as a human being, how you carry yourself, your belief system. What's important is your economic stature. As long as you got money in the bank, as long as you keep the general population starving where everybody wants to be like you with the deep pockets, once you've resocialized the people, the priorities become different. For us, it's not your worth as a human being anymore to raise a cohesive family that hopefully your children become upright members of the society. What's not important is what kind of car you drive, what kind of house you got, how tall are your walls to keep the riffraffs from attacking you when you step outside your house. You're a king in your own island, in your own space, but outside of it, it's rotten everywhere. There are sharks in the lagoon waiting on you to just touch the water, to step out of your house, and they're coming after you. We've been redefined. Our value system, everything is gone. And like Dr. Chidozie had mentioned, the worst is yet to come, because this is not about a violent attack. It's about coming with the candy and telling you, taste it. It's so good. And then you taste the candy, you go, oh my Lord, I got to have some more. You are now made to believe that you can't build your own airports, you can't build your own schools, you can't build your own hospitals, you can't build any kind of infrastructure for your people. You now believe that you need China to do it to you, for you. So to make it easier for the Chinese to come and do these things that you could do for yourself, I got to teach them my language so that they could be more comfortable when they come to Africa. Now they could speak Igbo, they could speak Yoruba, they could speak African language, Zulu, Swahili. Make it easy for them to mix with us. Our men are marrying their women so that you could have a mixed Chinese race in Africa, mix them up. But their men are not marrying our women. Maybe once in a purple moon, but I see a lot of Europeans or white folks marrying black women. But I ain't seen too many Asians marrying anybody. They might marry Europeans, but marrying black folks, no. But our black people, you see that Asian woman, oh, she's light-skinned. You forget that even Africans got light-skinned Africans too. So if light-skin is your thing, you could get that within your own black race. My mom was light-skinned, but she's all African all the way down. My own mother. But the black man, oh, light-skinned Chinese, I got to have her. There we go. No appreciation for your own people. You got black men even today talking about a black woman can't do anything for me. Wesley Snipes even said that one time. He's not married to a black woman anyway, but hey, you know, love is love. Do your thing. I'm not going to get in the middle of it. Whatever change you want, whatever. But that's just the way it is. So when you create wealth as an African man and you're marrying a European woman or Chinese or whatever, that wealth of yours will go to her into their own community when you die. You rob your own children, your own community of your hard work, the money, whatever resources that you may have accrued. When you die, somebody else gets it outside of your own race. But this is something that black men don't even think about. They've made up their mind that black women ain't good enough for them. A black woman can't do nothing for me. Really? But your mama black. What did your mama do for your daddy? When half the time your daddy is not even in the house, your mom had to be the one working 2 jobs to put you through school, to make you become somebody. And then when you become somebody, then you spit on her and marry outside your race. I ain't telling you not to marry who you love. That's not my point. My point is to think clearly before you do. And don't give me this stuff about love this and love that. My thing is, look at what it is that other people do that are great today. Look at their history, comparative analysis, study. Do you really want to be free? Do you really want to go to heaven? Do you really? Or is it just a fantasy? Or are you letting somebody else to come in and do it for you? Are you willing to do what it takes? The same energy that you put in to go through primary school, go through high school, go through college, get your PhD. Can you put that same energy into rectifying or helping rectify the wrongs that was done to Africa? Can you think like the Patrice Lumumbas? Can you think like the Kwame Nkrumahs? Can you think like the Marcus Garveys? Can you think like the Martin Luther Kings? Can you think like the Malcolm X's? Can you think like the Thomas Sankara? Can you think like the Stephen Bikos? Can you think like the Mandelas? Can you think like Ahai Keoka Onyoha? Who are you? What do you think, Dibias Chidozie?
Oh, well, you said it all. We have to move beyond individuals thinking and talking and trying to galvanize the rest. We have to begin to think about forming a nucleus, because a tree does not make a forest. Yeah, the Iroko tree, we say, is for us, in farm size, the tallest and the strongest of the trees in the forest. But the story of the Iroko tree is that it's always hidden in the midst of all that vegetation. You see that Iroko tree is in the middle of the forest. And so before wind gets to it, before flood gets to it, to put it in pidgin, other trees and vegetation they don't collect their own. So because I do know that if you leave the Iroko tree alone and it has to stand a strong wind, it will break. It will break after some time. Or if I have to face some strong flood, after some time, it will come down. And that's how, if you go to the social animals like the termite, their queen is hidden in the most sacred part of the dome they build. And so every animal, every tree, nature has a way of telling us stories that we should learn self-preservation, not as individuals, but as a group. Because history is not about the individual, it's about the group. When history writes about the individual, it writes about the individual in the midst of the group and what that individual has been able to achieve for the group. So history usually writes about the individual either as biography or autobiography, an individual that has a legacy that has left for the people, like Mandela, like Zeke Konyo, and so on and so forth, Thomas Sankara, all the people you have mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, so you see that these are the history other records about heroes or legends or masters who have influenced people, and people, the society has to be built around them. So they form a nucleus on which society is built. And so it's not them as individuals alone, but that they are individuals upon whom society is built, their legacy. It's a nucleus on which society is built. And so that's the first thing we must learn, that we have to move as a group. Because if we want to go far, we have to go together. But if you have to go fast, we can go alone. But you do know what happens to animals like leopard and cheetah and tiger that hunt alone. They are successful most of the time, but when they have to encounter animals that hunt in pack, like the lion and hyena, they are done for. They need their water low. And so animals like a hyena that not only struggle as a group, but they have team understanding. Because the buffalo move as a group, but they don't have a team understanding. So it is always easy for the lion to target the buffalo that has gone astray or is weak and take on it, and the other buffaloes just run along. But the hyena, you can't take on an individual hyena, other ones will come after you. Same thing with the wolf. They have team understanding. Okay, they not only hunt as a pack, they have team understanding that if you take on one, others come after you.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that Martin Luther King, Malcolm X were trying to build. Okay, and we have to look at their method and renew it, because renew it in the sense that we have to find a way of surviving. But the first thing we must do is to build a nucleus, which is what we're doing. And when we build that nucleus, we should build group consciousness. This group consciousness have to be on our individual, on our cultural backgrounds. But beyond our cultural background, we must rebuild our cultural foundations on the spirit of Pan-Africanism.
Yes.
Because if we build it alone, it will be very easy to face that particular group and exterminate them, which is what has happened to Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, and even Martin Luther King. With his very civil method, he was told, there's a book I read about Martin Luther King, program, I think something, programmed to die. The day he was killed, he was programmed that he will die that day by every means possible, either by the government agent or the Ku Klux Klan.
I have a dream speech.
So now, so we have to know how to survive. We have to look to nature. Yes, nature has, every tree has, even where of the same species, they have their uniqueness, but they contribute to the survival of the other. That is why our people have a saying, say, yes, the tree, they scavenge for food using their roots. But when the roots of trees encounter themselves on the ground, they don't kill themselves, they don't eliminate themselves, They create channels for themselves.
Yeah.
Each tree knows the kind of nutrient it's going for, and even though they share the same nutrient, they put their roots in different dimensions so that the other tree can survive.
Exactly. I
So we
love
must
that.
learn this thing that yes, we have to live as individuals, but not as individuals alone. As ethnic groups, but not as ethnic groups alone. We must learn that connectivity, interdependence, that's what will make us survive. So
Absolutely.
we have to first form a nucleus, build good consciousness, break the colonial wand. And the way to break the colonial wand is a mental thing.
Mhm.
We have to break the colonial wand. We have to stop thinking within the colonial confine. We have to start thinking within our own confine, which is what Chiism is all about. Start thinking within your own confine. But when you think within your own confine, don't be sandwiched, cocooned into that little space. Learn how to connect.
Yeah.
And because
Absolutely.
that is our spirituality.
Yes,
And
sir.
also learn how to respect even those that you are trying to liberate yourself from, because that's how you win them over.
Yes.
That's how you're going to get sympathizers among them.
Yeah.
And if they are willing, genuinely willing to come into to fraternize with you, accommodate them. But please know that things go by gradation. Our ancestors were no fools to have made it that even as a child born by them, that came from their loins, you have to go through the spirituality step by step in gradation, regulation, which is part of what Ofonogu is all about. The whole secret is not revealed to you one day. And it's only revealed to those that they discover the next stage you get is that you have passed the stage you are. You have shown preeminence, that you are not just an individual, but an individual that has penchant for communality, for community survival. So now, back in the time of our ancestors, what they knew were their communities. Today, we have to think outside the box of our communities. That's why Pan-Africanism has to come in.
Yeah.
Because if we do not go Pan-African, it is very easy to exterminate us as single ethnic groups. So, in that lane, I am not one who I am ethnic, but I am not an ethnic bigot. That it's only me, my ethnic group, myself, and alone. No, I am ethnic because we have to start from that foundation, but we have to build a connection, a net, connectivity, collaboration. And so as we are doing our own, we have to encourage others, which is what Chiism is all about.
Yeah.
It's not just about us alone. It's about enlightening others. So I'm not saying do it the way we are doing it. No, do it your own way. Let us relate. Let us form connection, connectivity. We are all moving towards the same direction.
Be like the root.
Yes. Be like the roots. So I think that's my little take in this.
Absolutely marvelous. I love that take. I love that take. Let me ask you this, Akachi. Some people just hate themselves, and we know that, and everything about themselves. And I'm talking in terms of Africans. We pretty much just hate our ancestors. We think are evil. Our Chineke, we don't think is as powerful as the God of the colonizer and the enslaver. We pretty much have no appreciation. We don't even think we contributed anything to civilization. We thought the Europeans came to civilize us. So because of that, we hate everything about ourselves and our ancestors, and we love everything foreign with zeal. And we know that a nation of people like this, never progress until they learn to love themselves and their own things and appreciate their history and their culture, just like all great nations do. What are your thoughts when it comes to that way of thinking?
Well, I would say that we're in alignment. Excuse me. I would say that we're in alignment because my note that I had written is that because we've been socialized to hate ourselves. The other part of what I was saying earlier is that I forgot this part, which is that we have to learn how to fall in love with being African.
Yes.
And so I found that like the other component that I saw within my sphere of social group and family and friends and everything is because we have been socialized to hate ourselves and devalue everything that's us and dismiss any and everything that's African. It was like I had to immerse myself in everything that was good. Not that we were perfect, you know, no romanticizing, but just everything that was good, everything that was beautiful, everything that was whole about original people of the planet, you know, and that's African people, like Black people, wherever we were. Like, you know, when I went to Hawaii, that really shifted my mind because I was able to meet people who were from Melanesia and Micronesia and Polynesia, because there was a parade on the river, very similarly to Black Panther, when they were on the rafts and they were dancing and they were having their procession down the river. That's what happened when I was in Hawaii, and it was each group Fijians, Togans, I mean not Togans, Samoans, all these different people, and they looked like us.
Yeah.
With afros, and I was looking at how beautiful they were, and how this has been colonized because now it's a tourist attraction. So now your culture is on display for tourism. Now you have to perform your culture. Once you got to be your culture, but now you perform who you are for money, because now you have to live in this society that has, you know, encapsulated how you once used to live, because now you have to pay for school and you have to pay for housing and you have to do all these things that your culture naturally had a way to create an economy and a society where your needs were met, and you all had it, because this notion is that like somehow we didn't have schools or we didn't have education, you know, until the Arabs or the Europeans came. We didn't know anything. And it's like, no, these people apparently they knew a lot, because they were able to sustain themselves for over like 10,000 years, right? And so that was very eye-opening, and it made me start falling more in love with who we are to actually visually see people who were, you know, yes, they might have been wearing grass skirts, but I thought it was beautiful. It made it made sense for the climate that they were in.
Exactly.
And it made sense that they weren't wasting materials and now polluting the world with what's now cargo ships full of throwaway clothes from the West, you know, tattered clothing. And so I personally feel like the other part to expedite everything is for us to fall in love with our culture. And so you have to learn your ancestors, your lineage. But unfortunately, if you, which you should, but if you don't have any pride in your own family, but I hope, you know, you come back around to finding pride in your family, you know, learn those great Africans. And I have to keep the balance. So, you know, like Fannie Lou Hamer, Ya Satiwa, Toya Mantu, Ida B. Wells, Mwanyewa, Wangari Maatai, Queen Nanny of the Maroons, all these different African people that help instill some pride in you, because you've been beat down socially and mentally in every way to hate yourself. And so I think that helps expedite the process for us to become whole. And then the other thing, like what Dibias was saying about being a seed and going back into the earth and everything, it made me think of the movie The Matrix. And the first step was like you had to unplug from the Matrix, and you had to basically be in the darkness, right? Before you were in the Matrix, but now you had to awaken and be essentially like secluded. And there's like this part in the movie where Neo, he has to relearn, like he has to learn everything. And so he gets plugged in and he learns all these different skills. And I think that that's where we have to immerse ourselves in relearning who we are, so that we can download, you know, change the program, and we can download our language. So we have to learn our language all over. You know, we have to learn, you know, how did we settle differences and quarrels, you know, because when people say that we were savages and that we were you know, brutes, it's projection. I said, I remember my great-grandfather used to watch Westerns, and the way that they settled a dispute was a duel. Like, your method for solving a problem was to kill somebody right there on the spot. But yet we were much more advanced, that we had these checks and balances and these ways in which we minimized quarrels, and we made things fair and just, and made people whole when, you know, someone wronged them, and we didn't have to resort to killing them. So clearly some form of our society organization is superior. And so I think that when, you know, we do that, it will help expedite us. And then the last thing I thought about was Dr. John Henry Clark, something that he said that really stuck with me. But it's more important to listen to the full length of this lecture that he gave. But there was a quote where he said, "We have no friends," and you know, it made all the sense in the world to me, because I felt like our greatest teacher is history, you know? And so if you looked at the history, as African people, we can't be silly and naive to think that we have friends. Yes, we might, you know, work with people, and we might, you know, strategize and have tactics and do certain things and maneuver about the world. That makes perfect sense. But we don't really have any friends. And, you know, he said the only thing that Africans owe anybody is a butt whooping. And that's true. I'm like, we don't owe anyone anything, and yet we're continuing to give. Like, I picture Africans as blood donors to all of the world but themselves. And so if you keep draining your blood and it's not recycling back into you, then you're gonna die. All of your life force energy is going outside of you. Your blood is not circulating. So like, we're going against nature, you know, to keep draining ourselves willingly. Now we're like, here, take the needle, put it in my arm. And it, you know, I think that once we, you know, unfortunately just face some hard facts.
Yeah. It's painful to think about it. It's just painful.
It is painful, because, you know, when like, going back to Hawaii, because that of the continental United States. Well, actually, I went to the Bahamas. Going to Hawaii, that was my cultural experience outside of the continental United States. And I remember thinking about those people and their story, because we saw a play, and it was about the Ha. And the Ha, it seems very similar to Chi. And I was like, wow. And then, you know, the Yoruba will say Ashe. And I'm like, the Ha, the Chi, Ashe. And I'm like, what? All these original indigenous cultures seem to have this understanding of they're directly connected. They don't need to go through anybody else. And everyone was able to look at their culture and, you know, think that it was beautiful and be in awe of it, because now they've been miscegenated. It's a whole nother story, by Asians who came over into the islands. But these were originally Black folks. And it was like, that was acceptable. But the minute that you talk about anything African cultural philosophy and spirituality, it's demonized. And I just thought, like, I could see the parallels. And I just think that it's okay for other people to have their worldview of how they came to be, except for us. And I think we have to address that, because other people have mythologies. Christianity is a mythology. And I think it's hard to I live and let live, but it's almost like it's very difficult to think about building with people at times when they believe in a fairy tale as an adult. It makes me think, like, you know, how do we, what is your rationale as a thinking person if you literally believe Jonah was swallowed by a whale.
Well, you know what, Akachi? I mean, very interesting what you said, and I totally agree with you. I mean, think about this, okay? As a Dibia, okay? Let me just go to the human mind for just a second, and I'm sure that Dibia Chidozie will back me up on this. First of all, the etymology of religion, right? The actual meaning of it is ascribing life-sustaining forces to something greater than yourself, and that something is the Almighty God. That is the etymology of religion. Religion is not Christianity. It's not Islam. These are philosophies with one task: to help you walk into the mystery of the Creator, whatever it means to you. That's what philosophies do, to guide you through this mystery and also promote, hopefully, a healthy relationship between you and your fellow human being and your environment. But that only holds true, the latter only holds true based on the intentions of the proponent of the religion. Because some religions are used as a tool to suppress others. If you don't believe in our gods, you're less than, bam, it's over. Christianism did it. The roots of Islam is not about if you don't believe in Muhammad, kill. The roots of Islam is about do you, I do me. Now, when you come after me, that's where they got a problem. It's Abrahamic, but there's a twist there. They don't believe that, they don't deny the existence of Jesus. They just say he's a messenger. And Muhammad is the last messenger. But they didn't tell you Jesus does not exist. That's not their problem. But Christianity will tell you that Muhammad is nobody's messenger. All they know is Jesus Christ. But that's neither here or there. That's just prejudice, and it's based on intention of the proponents of this religion. What do you plan on doing with it? And after 378 AD, I think the dating is right, when they became official religion of the Roman Empire. That's when Christianism went nuts and started to persecute everybody, including Christians. Our supporters from now on will be known as Catholic Christians. As for the rest, they will suffer the consequences of our persecution, of which we shall enforce. This is a papal bull in 378 AD. I ain't making it up. Research it. My question is for our folks, like Dr. Chidozie said in the beginning, Dibias Chidozie, like he said in the beginning, do you really think that Chineke has a preference? You know, the roots he talked about? Do you really think that when Chineke was creating the world, that Chineke said, you know what, I'm going to make the Chinese more superior than the Japanese. I'm going to make the wasp superior to the bee. I'm going to make the soldier ant superior to the safari ant. Our state in this world is based on number one, strength, your purpose, and how your existence sustains another creation. For example, the antelope. What is the purpose of the antelope? It's got the horns, but most of the time the horns is not for defense. The horns is to fight another antelope for the right to breed. But they eat grass. They have incisors, no canines. But the lion has claws, canines. His food is not grass that the antelope is eating. His food is the antelope. You could call the antelope weak. That's on you. But that antelope has a purpose, and the purpose of the antelope is to feed the lion. So for me, The antelope is not weak, it's just serving a purpose. In terms of human beings, we don't have this separation of natural defenses. Every human being has incisors and canines. We all have the same hands, the same leg. We got the same brain. Our activities is directly influenced by our environment. And it is our environment that ultimately dictates how we relate to other human beings. Period. The European ends up from Africa, ends up in the north. The environment, they had to adapt. They changed. Their hair changed. Their mind changed. Everything about them changed. Their pigmentation changed. But they still survived among themselves. But guess what they all had in common in Europe? And which I think the environment is responsible for it. Because of the lack of resources, natural resources. They were all violent. The Vikings were some violent people. The Romans were violent. The Greeks. Name one European country that was not violent. France invades Britain. Britain invades France. Germans. Vlad the Impaler. Romania. Vladimir. I mean, you name it. These people were interested in sustaining their little kingdoms so that they could go and enslave other Europeans. Europeans were enslaving Europeans, the Catars of France. Not only were they enslaved, they were massacred by the Catholic Church. But if you come to Africa, we don't have that kind of history. Because African history, in terms of war, had nothing to do with convincing your neighbor to become part of what it is that you do. Europeans took that Christianism, not only enslaved and put such violence on their own people, then they brought it outside the European continent and spread it all over the world. The same violence. And they use the excuse that they're coming to civilize you with their God, like you had no God before they came. Education, a lot of times for me, and I've said it on this show, and I've done a lot of op-ed writings about this stuff. I'm a proponent of comparative analysis. You have to. It's like finding yourself in a situation and then asking yourself, how did I get here? It's both philosophical and scientific at the same time. How did we get here? What is it that other people are doing that we were doing? What is the difference? What is the purpose? The idea of God, the idea of creation. What does that mean to the African? What does that mean to the European? What does that mean to the Asian? What does that mean to the Amazonian? Are the concepts the same? Or are we just arguing about process? Because the question a lot of times is not about I believe in God and you don't. It is about which is the way to get to God. That's what you're fighting. I mean, the Muslim believes in God, so does the Christian, but they don't see, you know what I'm saying? Their way is different. Judaism believes in God, but their way is different. They don't have a Messiah. Africans believe in Chineke, just like the European, but I think it's a direct relationship with Chineke without passing through any medium. We don't say, through Kamalo, Chineke, come and save me. We don't say, through Amadioha, Chineke, come and save me. We don't say, through anything, through this idol, through this cup, those effigies that you see, that you think is the devil's spawn. It's nothing. The only purpose it serves is for psychological focusing. If you come into the African spiritual house, you will see Fijoko Shrine. If you go to the Asians, you will see the shrine of Buddha in people's houses. Shinto, Christianism. Some people have altars in the house. People walk around with a cross around their neck. Nobody's calling that the devil, but the premise is the same for psychological focusing. Why is it that when an African person or black person eats chicken, eating chicken because it's a black thing? Don't white people eat chicken too? Don't Chinese people eat chicken? Why is it when I eat watermelon, all of a sudden black people love watermelons? Tell me who doesn't like watermelon. What about collard greens? Is it a black thing? Or is it just greens? Spinach, everybody eats it. Now, you grow collard green in tropical climates. So maybe that's why you're associating it. But I know chicken comes from everywhere. In Europe, there's chicken. In Japan, there's chicken. Dogs are everywhere. So dogs is not a European thing. It's African too. Do we think at all when we process these kinds of information? Do we really think? Do we really want progress? Do we really want it as Africans? Do you really want to go to heaven without dying? Or have you accepted the fact that you have to die to get there? Are you just talking, professing what you would love the world to be like for you? Cursing your ancestors? Not understanding that all human communities have their own ancestors. What is the difference between your ancestors and their ancestors? You can't walk around here and think that you're perfect. No human being is perfect. Your ancestors are not perfect either. They make mistakes too. The European ancestor makes mistakes. The African ancestor makes mistakes. The Asian ancestor. Everybody makes mistakes. But you have to live by your own standards, by your own cultural dictates. That's what everybody else is doing. The French is not trying to be British. The Germans don't care to be French, even though they're all Europeans. Mm-hmm. I don't care to be Ghanaian. The Ghanaian don't want to be Nigerian. Because in Africa, the countries in Africa are boundaries that were set by the colonizer. They're not natural. They're not boundaries that we created ourselves. Nigeria was not created by Nigerians, neither was Ghana or Senegal or Togo or Kenya or South Africa or Namibia. These are all boundaries created by the colonizers. But somehow before they came, we learned to exist, appreciate, understand. The Igbo man had no reason to go and invade the person in Ashanti. Empire creation has always been part of the Abrahamic, as far as Africa is concerned. The Abrahamic religious dictate is to go out there, use your religion to conquer others and take what is theirs and supplant it with yours. If it wasn't for European or Abrahamic religion, the world would not have the problem that it has today. And we wouldn't have European dominance of almost every culture, economic system in the world. We're all Europeanized, except for people that refuse, at least as far as linguistic is concerned, not to be controlled by the European. But in Africa, they're speaking French in African countries. We are the only people in Africa, and you don't necessarily have to quote me on this, but my research tells me we are the only group of people in the world that don't speak their primordial language in all things. Educational system, literature, geography, you name it. Africa is the only continent where the indigenous language is not part of anything. Chinese people these people were colonized by the British. Taiwan and Hong Kong is part of this colonization, but they became separate states. But they kept their culture, kept everything Chinese. And of course, the Chinese Revolution really changed up everything. The Japanese people have textbooks in Japanese. The French have scientific books, computer language is written in French, with a few English here, there, whatever. Germany, the same thing. Open up a computer in Germany. It's not in English, it's in German. We are the only people, and the indigenous people of the Amazons, that don't speak their own language. This stuff called Mexico, they speak in Spanish. It's not the Inca language. It's not the Mayan language. It's not the Aztec language. It's Spanish. is European influence in South Central America, Nicaragua, El Salvador. All of them have lost their culture. Every single one of them. The video that we saw today makes that clear. When are we going to get to the point? And like Chidozie, Dr. Chidozie has mentioned, Dibias mentioned, we have to, Maya Angelou had one of the most famous demos. If you want to get in a fight, you can't go in a fight with your fingers this way. You can't. That's Maya Angelou.
Right.
But if you boil them up, you could throw a mighty blow. Same thing with our people. Dibias just mentioned it. We have to do everything in unison. We have to come together. And while we're coming together, we also have to act like the roots in terms of our human relationships, outside and inside the continent. We simply have to do that. We have to work as one. We have to create an environment where people really start getting involved in comparative analysis and seeing the similarity between cultures, understanding what's natural, what is not. Don't allow yourself to be demonized. How can you build a castle on sand and expect it to stand? Your rock is your culture and your history, your religion, your primordial core is the rock you need to build the African nation, to think in Pan-African terms. Pan-Africanism, really, the nucleus of Pan-Africanism is appreciation of nature and the role that everything plays. And it is that appreciation and the role that everything plays allows you to develop an economic system, cultural, civic, and what have you, and controls how you relate to your environment and your fellow humans. That's Pan-African thought process. Europeans don't think that way. They think in economic terms. Pan-Africanism is not about capitalism, but we understand trade. But the European thinks in terms of money and whatever it takes to do it. I know we're coming towards the end of this program. I just want us to think a little bit deeper. And my biggest question to everyone that is out there is simply this. Do you really want Africa to become great again? Do you really want that? Does it, you know, is that a mind tease for you? Do you really understand what it takes to become great? Is that important? Or would you just rather we continue the assimilation that we have right now? And in Africa, the next, what do you call it, issue that we have to deal with, the next boogeyman is the Chinese. And they're coming this way, not with a sword. They're not coming to spill blood. They're not coming to take your mind. They're not coming to make you believe that you can't build anything unless they come and help you. They're going to make you not believe that they're the ones that will help you to become whatever you think you want to be, just for you to find out that they're worse than the bullet. Your thoughts, Akachi? You got 3 minutes.
Okay. Wow. Wow. You know, the first thing that came to mind, when you say that all the time, that life is a Serengeti, I think that when you know this, when you exist in this world and you understand that life is a Serengeti, then that means you have to understand your environment, and you have to know where there might be threats, where there's safe havens, you know, where there's food, where there's, you know, sustenance, where you can rest, you know, where you can thrive. And so I think for African people, because sometimes I feel like maybe it's better if we don't feel that it's a racial thing. Maybe that makes people more comfortable dealing with it in an analogy. So like when I think of the movie Avatar, you know, we're the blue people.
Yeah.
We're the Na'vi. And so we have to know that if we go beyond this point, there might be danger. and we have to know what that danger looks like and the different forms that it might come in, so that we can self-preserve. That's like the first law of nature.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, we were taught that our own self-preservation isn't worthy. And so when we condemn, if we condemn our ancestors, then we condemn ourselves.
True.
And
Absolutely.
I don't think that we understand that when we are condemning our ancestors and then revering another people's ancestors, we're giving them life. We're extending their lives, and at the expense, though, of ours. And
Yes.
so when we love and we respect and revere our ancestors, then we will in turn love and respect and revere ourselves, and therefore we will self-preserve. We will have the spirit in us to want to still be here, which I think is the question that you're asking. Do we really want to be African? Because I wrote, it was based on Ahani Keoke Onyiwa. It was a lecture. It's on Chiism.org, the first video.
Yeah.
I wrote an article, very brief. African exists because at this point we're accepting death to basically be zombies. We're saying that, I want to shop European, I want to drive foreign, I want to live Western, I want to pray to Mecca or to Rome, I want to dress, or I think I already said, but that I want to marry, outside of my culture, outside of my people, and therefore lose my lineage, my progeny. And that's because we're condemning ourselves, because we're believing another people's philosophy and mythology, and even just we decided to lie down. And so I think in order for us to get up, I think that's why we need to study the environment, which is the Serengeti, and see who we are and what others are, so that we can preserve ourselves, and then also fall in love with who we are, so
Thank
that we
you
have
for
the
that.
fight.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Dr.
Thank
Chido
you.
Chido's here. 30 minutes. We're almost out of time.
I love that parting shot by Akachi.
Yes.
Just to resonate, talking more like Sun Tzu some thousands of years back. Say, he said, if you know yourself inside out, you know the order inside out, you know the terrain inside out. In 100 battles, 100 successes. But if you do not know yourself inside out, and you do not know the order inside out, you do not know the terrain inside out, in 100 battles, 100 losses.
True.
And so that tells us a lot. So what I'm going to say is that Dibia Ochaja and Oke Dibia, the two of them taught us that, look, we don't have the resources to start building gigantic empires, skyscraper universities. So let us think of a university that is software.
Yeah.
The same way, when we kick off, we have to think of how this university is going to tell us what we are saying in this program in our different languages.
Absolutely. Linguistics. Yeah.
So that we can promote the spirit of Pan-Africanism in our ethnic languages.
Absolutely.
And promote, once we are able to ignite that, they will be building consciousness. Because for now, Pan-Africanism seems to be only understood in English language or foreign language. That is not good for us. That's my parting shot. Thank you.
Wonderful. I appreciate you guys. And do me a favor, don't leave after the show. Okay, Dibia wants to kind of say a word or two to us. But thank you so much. It has been a very, very hearty and healthy conversation. And join us next week